Okay, today we're going to work on a Sidewinder. Would be the same as maybe working on the Articat, Thundercat. What we're going to do is I'm going to take off the side panels, and then we're going to, as you can see I did on a few of these already, the lower panels normally are riveted on. So what I do is I put in inserts and use stainless steel screws, and I use Phillips screws just due to the fact that I don't want to strip out the insert, because even though they're crimped in, they can still spin. You can see there's one up in there, and then there'll be one back there, and then two back there. So once I get that panel apart, I'll kind of show you what the inserts look like. Then on the other side, I will drill out the inserts and crimp in an insert. As you can see, I drilled out this panel before, and what I would suggest is drilling out these holes to 5/16. I'm using a 1/4-20 threaded insert that gets crimped in, and I'll show you how to do that later. And then I use stainless steel washers, screws, and lock washers, as you can see in the tray. This one I have done before. I'm just pulling it off to do an oil change. It makes it so much easier to do the oil change. I'm drilling out these rivets. Sometimes you're going to have to take and grab the other side with a vice grip. I'm using a fancy right angle drill, but you can prop your sled up and then get right underneath you. And then drill those heads right off. And here we got another one under there. Get them off there. And proceed to take all these off. And then there'll be two screws. There'll be a screw right here and a screw right here, and basically the panel will just drop down and pop right out. Well, the front ones here, normally you pull the shocks, but with the IQS it's a little more tricky, so I like to drill them out with a longer bit. You can buy one of those at the hardware store. They're pretty cheap. And then sometimes you might just have to use a little hammer and chisel and just tap underneath it a little bit to get the washer to start popping up on the bigger rivets, and they'll pop right off. Okay, all the rivet heads are popped off. I'm going to go ahead and pull off these two screws here. There's one on each end that I had mentioned earlier. Put that over here. There's one up here. Pop these guys off like such. And then you should be able to basically wiggle your way out a little bit. She pops right off just like that. I had one other bolt I needed to pull out because I have a belt guard on there. So be aware if you have a belt guard like that. And that's about it. And from here we make sure we get all the excess parts out. We will drill out these to be 5/16, and then I will go ahead and start drilling out the inserts, and I'll show you how that looks when I get to that point. One thing I'd like to point out is sometimes it's easier to, I take a Sharpie and make sure that every place that I want to put in a riv nut or threaded insert, I have a little mark by it. There's a lot of rivets, and sometimes you'll be like, well, which ones did I drill out? And you know, you'll have to go back through and pull the panel over and check it out anyway. So I usually just take a little Sharpie and I put a little line by each one of them so I know where I'm going to be putting them in. Some of them are obvious, but some of them not so obvious. Alright, so I'm going to drill these out. I wanted to let you know that what I like to try to do is get this as tight as possible. So I'm going to use a 25/64 drill, and I've already drilled a hole, because when you crimp it, you want it as tight as possible. So what I'm going to do is finish drilling all these out, and then I'll show you the process in which I'm going to crimp these in. So 25/64 for the 1/4 inserts. Alright, I got a couple tools here. I'm going to show you how I do this because it's a small area to work in. So I like to take the insert tool like this, which basically you can buy at Harbor Freight, you can buy it at Menards, and I like to just get the insert in, just get it in, start crimping, and they're usually pretty good tight wise, but I like to come back with my more aggressive tool that I bought from Amazon, and I'll show that to you in a second. It's a pretty slick little tool. You can see here it comes with all kinds of tips. This is a 1/4 tip, real easy to put in. Basically, you take this and there's a little collar here you slide down, and you just thread that in until the flats line up, and then you just release the bottom part and it keeps it tight, and then you drop the guide on, basically like that, and then this thing's ready to rock and roll. Now you will need a little more room to use this one, so I'm going to jack up the side of the sled a little bit so I can get underneath there and get a good bite on there, and I'll show you what I'm doing. I have a winch built in, so it makes this actually easier than it looks, but so you take the new tool, thread that baby in there, and make sure give it a little bit more oomph. There, she tightened up beautifully. You can go a little bit tighter, and that's the whole point of, you know, the hand one, you just can't get enough leverage. I've had them spin, so I want to be sure they're nice and tight. That way, you know, if a screw gets stuck, you can actually get in there and get that screw out without the insert turning. I'm going to go ahead and finish working on this and drilling these out. And if there's any other tricks along the way, I will flip on the camera. As you can see, I had to pull the shock off, just kind of letting it hang there. It's easiest to get to this one and this one. And you can see all of the rivets or riv nuts are all put in. And they all are crimped down beautifully. Basically now all I do is put them together with stainless fasteners and washers and stainless lock washers, and put the panel back together and you are all set.